grounded and attentive because I actually drive a green Subaru. And so I don't remember my license plate number because it's a lease. So if I seem a little out of sorts this morning, you know why. So how about we do something that I do when I am feeling out of sorts and I want to be grounded, I want to know that I am right here in my right and perfect moment. I pray. So will all who care to, please join me in this prayer that actually comes from A Course in Miracles. I invite you to close your eyes and join with me in this knowing that I am here only to be truly helpful. I'm here to speak on behalf of the one who sent me. I do not need to worry about anything, about what to say or what to do, because that Spirit which sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever Spirit wishes, knowing that that is in my best interest. I am here to heal and to be healed and to have my car be healed. And so it is. Thank you. All right. I think I'm good now. So anyway, it's great to be back here. It's been a little while. For those of you who don't know, I lead the weekly Sunday evening service, so that's actually speaking every week, and so that's kept me from being able to be here in the morning on a consistent basis. But even though I haven't been here, I've tried to stay as involved as possible by checking out the YouTube videos. I don't know if most of you know, we have a Unity Temple YouTube channel in which all of our talks are put on video every week. And so because of that, I'm able to kind of keep abreast of what's going on up here and listen to the beautiful sermons by Reverend Sandra and Duke and Reverend Donna Johnson, who often speaks here. While I don't always get to hear the talks, I definitely made a point of listening to Reverend Sandra's talk this past Sunday on the power of elimination. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the 12 powers, what Reverend Sandra was talking about is a foundational, transformative unity teaching that is known as the 12 powers of man, that term coined by our co-founder, Charles Fillmore. And our co-founders taught that actually the spiritualization or quickening of these 12 powers is actually the path to the realization of our Christ potential, of our divine potential, of our maximal, in some ways human and spiritual potential. So these are very important powers to study and to, again, spiritualize. And some of you who have even studied the 12 powers may not know that the 12 powers are ideally designed to be studied in a certain order. And the order is based on the order in which Jesus called forth each of the disciples. As Sandra noted, each power is represented by a disciple in the Bible. And so in the beginning of our spiritual journey, we call forth Peter, who represents faith, the power of faith. But then, all the way to November, month 11, we are talking about the power of elimination, which is the power of letting go, right? And what's interesting about that is this is represented by the disciple or apostle Thaddeus, and this power happens right before the final one, which is the power of life. So what Reverend Sandra was talking about was the very important progress of our spiritual awakening and how before we are to have new life, before we are to have a new life, before we are to birth a new world, a new nation, it is essential that we practice on a daily basis this power of letting go of the old and being reborn into the new. And so in some ways, I'm going to deepen our conversation about this process of letting go today. But notably, so I listened very carefully, more than once actually, to Reverend Sandra's talk. During this whole time, I noticed a major omission in her talk. Because what many of you don't know is that during our Tuesday staff meeting, we talked extensively about the power of elimination. Now, there was a lot of laughing when we were talking about this. And let's just say that I won't go into details about what we talked about during our staff meeting about the power of elimination. But let's just say a good, 30 minutes of our staff meeting went down the toilet. Yeah. And I mention that only to illustrate how the reason I'm not going into detail about that is that I'm a person of discretion. And I pride myself in the fact that I have the ability to, go down a certain track when it comes to joking and then stop, right? But not all of us are like that. And I have a friend, his name is Mark. It's no one in this congregation. Ministers are taught, whenever you talk about someone, it's someone far, far away in some distant land years ago, right? But I have a friend named Mark, really actually from California, who is like this, where if he goes down this questionable path, he doesn't know when to stop. He'll keep going until he goes right off that cliff. Everybody else is standing there going, all right now, And so whenever he starts this round of really off-color jokes, it's as if he becomes powerless over what's happening. And it just sort of rolls right down. And they say that, it's common enough that all of us have someone in our family who's this person, right, like Mark. And they say that if you think hard and you don't know who that person is in your family, that likely it's you, right? Just think about it, yeah. So I mentioned this notion of going on this really negative, downward spiraling path and feeling powerless, not because it ever happens to me when it comes to verbal conversation, right? I can be fairly poised and contained when it comes to that. But I definitely identify with the notion that when it comes to my own thinking, I can spiral like that, right? So that's kind of what I want to talk about here today. I want to do it in 3 parts. Because as much as I know intellectually, as a unity minister who teaches this stuff, I found myself recently going down a very negative, spiraling path that involved a lot of complaining, blaming, name-calling by me, actually. And what was interesting for myself, once I caught myself in it, is how in the midst of it, there was like a numbness and a lostness in it, to where I didn't see that was happening. And so I want to talk today about how revisiting the principles of A Course in Miracles, which is my foundational spiritual path. The Course in Miracles is how I found unity back in 2004. How revisiting some of the teachings there helped me to release this negative chain, if you will, and find greater peace in my life. So I think I can divide the journey into 3 parts. All of them kind of are reflective of A Course in Miracles lessons and teachings. And the first one that A Course in Miracles teaches is that I am not a victim of the world I see. That's number 1. Number 2 is projection makes perception. Projection makes perception. And then number 3 is the power of decision is my own. That final piece was reclaiming my power of decision to choose once again truth over falsehood, love over fear. So I want to speak a little bit today with you about that journey that I took in hopes that simply by my sharing of this thing, and it was really recent and really humbling, that by my sharing that perhaps you can glean some truth for yourself, as they say in 12-step, take what you want and leave the rest. So the first idea that I sort of woke up to this idea that if I'm in a negative or complaining thought spiral, then even though in the midst of it, because I'm indignant, I'm angry, I'm articulate, I think, about this stuff, I feel powerful. But the truth is, if you listen to my story, I'm a victim. And what does it mean to be a victim? It means that I believe that any person or circumstance can keep me from my good. That any person or circumstance can keep me from love. And so, in the midst of this, when I found myself talking to a dear friend very confidentially about my judgments about this particular person, this man, if you will, and I heard words like selfish and greedy and bombastic, come out of my mouth, it really caused me to sit back and go, whoa, name calling. That's, like, what's going on here, right? And so the first step was to realize that, wow, and for 2 weeks now, I've been upset. 2 weeks now. And so, again, that's not power, right? When I've basically handed this person power over me, right? Power over my peace. So the first step was just even recognizing that. But then the second step was a little bit more difficult. A Course in Miracles teaches that especially when we see something out there, it's actually in here, right? Especially when we condemn it out there. And those of you who know a little bit about Jungian shadow theory, it's this idea that when we especially see recurrent patterns, like when we point and say, oh, hey, look, someone's behaving like this, and when I hear that I'm describing this person like this, and lo and behold, guess how I describe some of the people in my family of origin? In the same way, using some of the same words. And so I realized, again, the common denominator was me. Could it be? Could it be that my world really is a product of my thinking? I teach that, but in the moment we believe that's true for everybody else, right? But no, this is real. These are the facts about this person, right? We think that, but then just really go back and go in and say, oh, wow. For me to come to healing, I need to first turn within. What in me is self-centered, selfish? Have I repressed that part? I don't want to see that part. So I project it out there. It's over there. It's in you. What in me is bombastic, prideful. And so recognizing that I was putting out there unclaimed parts of my own wholeness, parts that I didn't want to claim because I deemed them negative, was my second step. And that took a lot of self-love, because it wasn't just about claiming it and like, ooh, you're bad too, And I think that's why we fear to claim it, because we're going to start judging that piece in ourselves. And so I remember doing this work of going, oh, okay. When I feel separate from God, then I become kind of self-centered, because I don't think my needs are going to be provided for naturally by the universe and the world. I don't trust that. So I march out in the world, looking for what is mine, looking to claim it, because if I don't, who else is going to provide for me? To really think about that and sit with that. And so that was my next step. And as I came to own some of those things and honor those things in myself and have compassion, I have a therapist friend who actually taught me something recently. I won't totally show it to you here, but it was kind of like a self-holding thing, where when you feel strained and you're kind of leaning forward in the world, she taught me this thing where you just take your own hand, you lean your neck back, and it's like you're holding yourself. And so physically, like psychologically, I felt like I was doing this for myself. Those qualities that I thought, are going to make me unlovable, whatever ways in which I'm selfish, you got to nix that. No one's going to love you if you're like that. No one's going to love you if you want to be seen. That's selfish, that's self-centered. So I got to see all the qualities I was judging in this other individual in myself, and then I got to hold it. Let it rest in me and embrace it. And then finally, I came into this, that means I'm really responsible for my experience here. And this is not to say that we're not to go act in the world and make changes in the world. But it's about saying that before we can even have any clarity about what's ours to do out there, to change situations, to change jobs, to change relationships, to change countries, we have to first go back here. The power of decision is my own, says the Course in Miracles. And so I sat with that. And then that thought, choose once again, which is an entire chapter of A Course in Miracles, a chapter devoted to healing and salvation as they teach it. Choose once again. And it's in that moment that I realized that when I was in this outward blaming mode, I was also trying to brainstorm a bunch of outer solutions. But I was anxious, I was stressed. I didn't know how to change this person or change my situation so I didn't have to be around this person. Right? And so I was fixated on the outer world, on choosing a different outer path. But here, in the third phase of this learning, I went back. The power of decision is my own. And A Course in Miracles has a deeper teaching around this. Choose once again is not about making a different outer choice. It's about making a different inner choice. Choose once again is the decision to choose truth over falsehood. Truth in unity is that we are truly whole and truly one. Truth is that love is the very fabric of our being. Truth is that you and I are connected and one, right? And if I judge you, I am judging a part of myself. But here's the thing. I couldn't, from where I was standing, I was still in ego, right? This idea that, hey, I'm still separate and I'm figuring out what to do here. There's a small place from which that comes. And admittedly, it was an exacerbated place. It was a place of desperation and even at moments, despair. It was painful enough to me that I was feeling despair. Like a person of faith, and I was feeling just this deep, sense of powerlessness and fatigue. But then I remembered what this choice was about in A Course in Miracles, and it says, every choice is really one choice. The choice between the weakness of your ego and the power and strength of Christ within you. Every decision we make, it teaches, can be boiled down to this. We think we have a million different choices every day, but we have only one in every moment. Do I open to the knowing of truth in this here now moment, about this situation, about this person, about this thing? Or do I act as if I'm separate from the entire universe, trying to figure out what to do next? If I'm out here, it's a really scary place to be. There's a sense of direction and lostness, and of course there's a sense of despair. But if I'm in here, that place of knowing, to me there is a deep trust in there. We move from that idea, projection, and perception to knowing. Knowing doesn't have an object and a subject, right? It just simply is. And so I opened to the passage in A Course in Miracles that I studied so long ago, and I found relief in this. Choose once again, chapter 13, the simplicity of salvation. How do you make the choice? How easily is this explained? You always choose between your weakness and the strength of Christ in you. And what you choose is what you think is real. Simply by never using weakness to direct your actions, you have given it no power. And the light of Christ in you is given charge of everything you do. For you have brought your weakness unto Spirit, and Spirit has given you its strength instead. And then this is in your bulletin. Trials are but lessons which you failed to learn, presented once again. So where you made a faulty choice before, you now can make a better one, and thus escape all pain which what you chose before has brought to you. In every difficulty, all distress, and each perplexity you face, Christ in you, calls to you and gently says, "Beloved, choose again." Thanksgiving is coming. Thanksgiving can bring up, for many of us, old stuff, repeated stories, yes. No matter how much we've grown, go back to our families, we think it's the same old story. Maybe not this time, though. Maybe not this time, right? What if I open to the possibility that it is by virtue of my seeing that my life is like this? And that if I see through the eyes of love, of God, of oneness, if I don't copy and paste the past and what I've seen onto this person in this present moment, I could see reality for what it is. I could see this person as part of me. Then I've opened up to loving more. And today, in this day, when so many people, as Sandra said last week, have called Duke and Sandra and me to ask about what to do right now post-election, I'm reminded of Mother Teresa, who basically, said sometimes it's really easier to go help the hungry over here, go serve others, and much harder to love in our own homes. Peace on earth, as we teach, begins with us first here in consciousness, but then right here with the people next to us, right? We cannot expect worldly leaders to resolve conflicts better than we do in our own homes with the people right before us. So that's the invitation I have. And here's the beauty of this practice that for me is so immensely freeing. For someone like me who has come from a background where as soon as you make a mistake, it feels like, just throw it all out. We're done here. You're on a diet, you ate that bite, forget about it. The whole bag's in my hands. And it's that sense. Choose once again, frees me. It's the moment where I could even be in the middle of that Thanksgiving dinner fight and go, oh, and have a moment and remember, I am one with you. If I can have compassion for the perceived negative traits, my perceived enemy, the perceived negative traits that I see in you, then I can open up to the truth that I am love, and so are you. So with that, I'm going to invite us into a time of meditation in which we can know this truth more deeply. And if we have had a negative thought about our brother or our sister, I invite you each to choose once again